Okay, so today we're going to go through blushing and creating the yellow nose. So we're going to start with the head and doing some blushing on there. So I'm going to use the same paint we were using for the mottling that we did last lesson. So I'd had it in my little sealed ramekin here. So I've just popped it back into the other ramekin, you know, the open one. So I'm just going to remix the paint because it's settled. Okay, so with the head we're going to want to do blushing on the cheeks and around up to about here, up to where the nose starts, and we're going to want to do that on both sides. We're going to want to add a little blushing to the chin and above, in between the two eyes here. And we're also going to want to do some blushing around the ear, so around the outside of the ear, and just deepening those ear creases. I'm going to do that on both sides, and then I'm going to go in and we're going to do the yellow tones on the nose as well. And that's what we're going to do on the head, so we'll start with that. So what I'm going to do is, first things first, is I'm going to get my, which brush? Where is it? This wide brush here, something similar to this. This is a number 10 flat brush, but anything similar to this will be fine. So I'm going to just dip that into my paint, a good swirl around, and remove a lot, almost all of the paint on the brush. And then I'm just going to, far too much on there. We have a bit of fluff on that as well. So I'm just going to pop that in the cheeks, and I'm just going to paint all the way around, like so. So a bit like a clown at the moment, but just like paint all the way around, and we're going to bring it down onto the chin roll, just above the chin roll, and bring it up past that ear and stop around about level with the eye. And we're going to bring that down and above the lip here. I'm going to go over the top above the lip and bring it into the nose area and round on the fat roll there that goes up onto the nose. Okay, and then we're going to take our pouncing sponge and we're just going to pounce and dab over the top of where we've just popped all the red, like so, and we're just going to move that up and into the nose ever so slightly, so there's more of a gradient rather than it stopping dead on the line there. So you just want to flush out all the lines around the edges, and then can you see the difference in the cheeks already? And that's just with the one layer. So we're going to go ahead and do the same on the other side. So mix your paints and remove the majority on your brush. You really do not want a lot at all because you don't want it running around. So again, on the cheek, around the nose, above the lip, like so, up to where the nose starts and the fat roll there, and moving it around, bring it down to the first chin crease, up past the ear, and stop in line with the eye, like so. And then we're going to get our sponge and just pounce out the excess and just make sure there's no harsh lines on the edges, and just bring that redness into the nose slightly so it's more of a gradient. Like so. And you can see the cheeks already have a lot more colour there. Okay, and now we're going to do the little chin. Now there's two ways you can go about doing this. You can either have the actual chin being quite red, or the little crease that comes underneath the lip, and you can blush that area instead. I tend to go down the middle and then use the base of the chin as where I'm going to put my blush, like so. You see how I've done that? So down the centre and then just sort of smile, a bit like a rabbit smile. You know how you draw a nose and then you draw, so you got the nose and then you draw like smile either side, so it's like a W in a way. So I've done that on there, and then I'm just going to pounce that off with my, or dab that off with my sponge, and I've got a little bit of fluff there, okay, and like so. So it's given some definition, it's helped with the shaping as well, but it's also given it some nice blushing, and it doesn't look as though anything's missing as such. Okay, now the other place I'm going to deal with now is above and between the eyes. Now newborns tend to have some kind of stalk bite here, not quite a birthmark but a stalk bite, and it tends to just come up between the eyes and goes off in one direction, no, whichever, it doesn't matter. So I'm just going to do the same as I've done with my cheeks, and I'm just going to blot upwards in a random pattern, and just wherever your brush takes you, and just dab around like so, and usually bring it down into the eye as well. So can you see, just a random pattern, nothing too much, and then I'm just going to dab that out. You don't want to dab too much with this because you do want a bit of definition on this one, but that's just the start of it there. So we're going to make it a lot darker as we go along, but for now that's just about right. Okay, so that's all we're going to deal with for now. So we're going to heat set that with our heat gun, and then we'll do something similar next. So we've heated that up now, and it's not too hot, so I'm going to go back and do something similar. So same amount of paint on your brush, so very little. We're going to go in a similar area, so we're just going to go in the cheek area this time, so in a little rosy circle, and then just bring it down and back to the ear ever so slightly. Like so. Can you see how that's just brought back? So it's like a little jelly bean in a way. And then we're just going to pounce with our sponge. Just going to pounce that out there. And then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. So can you see how that's changed the cheek again? So we're just highlighting the sort of rosy cheeks at the minute. So again, in a little circle here, and then bring it down and around here. So you've got yourself a little jelly bean there. And then we're going to just pounce with your sponge. Make sure there's no harsh lines, and you're blending it in quite nicely. And you can see there they've got matching cheeks now. And we're going to go into the chin again. Again, a similar thing here. So go into where you want to start and bring it round to wherever it is you would like it to end. So just a little pattern there, and just pounce that out like so. And then again up to the head. So on the forehead here, so same little similar way that we did last time. Try and go over it like so. And then you can see that there. And then we're just going to pounce that out ever so slightly. Like that. Now, I'm going to go in, before we heat set, I'm just going to take a smaller brush and I'm going to go into the eyelids here. Bit of fluff on my brush there. And along the crease where the eyes open, that brush is too big actually. So I'm going to use the brush that I used for creasing. So this is a 0 brush. And I'm going to go into the crease where the eye opens. So the main crease of the eye. And you do that on both sides. Just add a little bit more paint there. Like so. I'm just going to blemish that out with my sponge. And we're going to heat set all that again. So that's just added a little bit more definition, and we're going to go ahead and repeat that process now. So mixing your paints, making sure there's barely anything on your brush, and then going into the little cheek areas, just making that little blemishy cheek. I'm not going to bring it around this time, I'm just going to stay in the circular area. Like so. And just pounce with your sponge. And just really bring that colouring in. Just make sure it's a nice gradient and just feather it out. Go. Just going to add a little bit more in here because it's not quite as much as on the other side, so I want to kind of keep it as even as possible without it looking, you know, overly even. So I'm just going to leave the cheeks like that and heat set now, so the cheeks are one ahead of everything else, because then the cheeks have a little bit more rosiness to it and they stand out a little bit more. So I'm just going to heat set them now. Okay, you see how she's really beginning to pull her colour in now, and this is where the lifelikeness really begins to show. So some of my favourite parts here. Okay, so now I'm going to take my smaller brush and just go in between the eyes again. Do that on both sides. And just use my sponge to pounce out the excess. And then heat set that. Okay. And then just do that a little bit more, and I'm going to go over the eye now. Like that. Rather than just in the crease. So over the eye. just pounce that. So I'm just going a bit above the crease. There's a second crease here and I'm just going a little bit above that. Just so I can have a bit more of a gradient on her eyelids, and her eyelids have a little bit of colour. I just like to have a nice gradient going up so it's not a sudden line, so it doesn't look like eyeshadow. I'm going to heat set that. Okay, now I'm going to go back and do the stalk mark on the forehead, so going back with my big brush and just getting the majority of the paint off that, and just going up and following the pattern that I did previously, or something similar. Doesn't have to be exactly the same. Like so. I've just brought that down ever so slightly onto her nose there, just so, because she's got quite a prominent crease across in between her eyes, it just brings it down past that, so it doesn't look like a major, like it's just stopped. So just pounce the excess of that off. Like so. It's looking really nice. Okay, so we're beginning to get there now. So I'm just going to heat set that now. Okay. Right. So I'm going to go back and do her cheeks again. It's all about just keeping going until you're happy with the colour. No set number. Ooh, far too much on my brush. And I'm going to go do it in the chin as well. Okay. Oh, flying sponge. Just pick that up from the floor. And just pounce around the cheeks. Like so. Don't worry about the nose standing out for now, because we're going to go in and fill that in a minute. So just going to add a little bit of colour here because it looks like it's a little crease. So just going with my sponge there. Okay, for this stage we're just going to be working on the corners of the nose, just to kind of give them a little bit of definition, and start working on shading around and just making this look a little bit more translucent and you know, the sort of shiny nose that newborns get, and it's just the radiancy from it. So we're going to start with mixing our paints. So if you have any left over, then the crease paint would do fine with a little tweak, but I'm just going to show you how I make it, because I'm going to tweak it slightly. So I'm just going to use 1 pipette of thinner because we're not going to need too much here. So I'm going to be wanting our lip blush and nail, and you're going to want your eyelid purple and the tiniest bit of warm blush. So you want these 3 colours, alright, and then we're going to go ahead and mix them. So the base colour, as usual, is the lip blush and nail. So just wet your brush and just come in and pick up some red and mix that in there. Make sure there's no little bits hiding around. Put my lid on that and put it away. And then with the purple, I'm just going to take one side of the brush covered. So you can see there's about a halfway line there. Just the one side, not the other. And I'm just going to pop that in the palette. You can see the purple there. And this just darkens it up slightly because we are sort of doing a crease here. Just gives it a darker tone. And then we're going to move in with the warm blush, and then the point of this one is to just warm up the colours a little bit, because putting the purple in, it's darkened it, which is great, but it's also made it slightly colder. So we're just going to add a little bit of this red as well, just to the warm blush, just to warm it up a little bit. Okay, just add a tad more, just the side of my brush, nothing much, and just add that into there. And you see how that's warmed it up, but we're still nice and dark. Okay, so again we want a thicker consistency, not too thick, so you can see it's a bit more sluggish running down, and you can see the colour within compared to the washes, but it's not too thick. So roughly around what we had with the blue tones. Okay. Right, okay, so I'm going to be using a smaller brush. This is probably about a size 2 flat brush, and I'm going to be using that. And we're going to move in with our head. So just pick up a little bit of colour here, and we're going to go around the corners of the nose. So this is, I'm going to start at the top here, and we're just going to work our way down on the corner of the nose, so we're actually on the nose here, and move our way right down into the side there. So up and around, like so. Can you see how we did that? And then we're going to move in and do the same on the other side. So up around where the crease stops at the top, and just bring it around the side of the nostril and down into the crease, like so. And I'm just going to bring it up around and around a bit so it kind of joins in the top, this sort of circle. Okay, and then we're just going to lift that off with a clean, well, a dry red sponge, not clean, but dry, like so. And then we're just going to heat set that once we've checked that there's nothing in the creases. Okay. Okay, so moving on to the next one. So I'm just going to mix my paints again with my bigger brush so I don't ruin my smaller brush. So we're going to do the same thing again, so into that crease there, and around the side of the nostril and down into the crease at the bottom. And the same on the other side. And then this time we're going to go from the base in between the nostrils and just lift up a little bit with a couple of brush strokes. Okay, just going back in to fill those corners there. And then we're just going to pounce off the excess with our sponge, and then we'll heat set that with our gun. Okay. Do that again. So mixing your paints, we're going to start at the top of the crease of the nostril here. Just make a little ball and bring it down and around the base there, all the way around. I'm going to do that on the same on the other side, so making a little ball, moving it down and around the side of the nostril here, then just along the base here, just lift it up ever so slightly and just dab it out with your sponge, and then heat set that. Now this is a time when you really don't want a lot on your brush. You need to be very, very stitchy with it. You don't want too much on your brush, okay? So very much like the creases, we don't carry a lot on our brush. If we flick it, nothing's going to come off. Okay, so we're just going to do the same thing again. So just do a little circle in the corner of the nose, just there, and bring that down the side of the nose. Okay, and around the corner into the nostril base, like so. And then along the base there, and just lift up. And same on this side. Okay. And then we're just going to dab the excess off again. Just once or twice, because you don't want to be moving the colour to a place you don't want it. Because this area is there's very certain places you want to put it. So I'm just going to heat set that again. Okay, can you see how we're beginning to get a little bit of shape to the nose now? Yeah. Okay. So same thing again, in the corner, around, in the corner, and around, along the base, and bring it up. And I'm just going to circle the top once more, so we have a little bit of a circle there, okay? Can you see that? And then we're just going to pounce that off, ever so gently. Okay, and then we're going to heat set that. And we're going to do one more for now, and we'll move on to the next part. So same thing again, just in the corners of the nostrils, on both sides and along the base. And along the middle there. Okay, so just dab the excess off there. Very little pressure. Okay, and then we're just going to heat set that. Okay, so we're going to leave the nose for now, and we're going to move along to the bags of the eyes. So using the same small brush, I'm just going to mix my paints with the bigger brush first. Using the same paints here, I'm going to take my smaller brush, and I'm going to turn the head upside down because we can get into the crease better. Okay, so I'm going to take a little bit of paint on my brush, not too much, just a tad, and then we're going to follow this line, but we're going to have our brush so it is lying against this fat roll here on the cheek. So that's where we're going to put our paint. So follow the line, make sure the tip of your brush is in the crease, like so, and you want to be following all the way around with your brush against the cheek roll. So can you see how the paint is actually going onto the cheek roll there, as opposed to the bag of the eye, and nicely into the crease. I'm going to do the same on the other side as well. So making sure your brush tip is in the crease and lying against the cheek roll, fat roll. Okay, we're just going to pounce that out with our sponge ever so gently. Make sure it's nice and blemished so there's no line along the cheek. Okay. And then we're just going to heat set that. Okay. Right. And then we're going to do that again. So just pick up a little bit more on your brush and do the same thing. So we're following the line. Okay. And we're just going to pounce that out with our sponge ever so gently. And we'll do that on both sides. Okay. Like so, and then we'll heat set that again. Now I'm going to turn the head the right way round and just check that we're going in the right direction, which we are. Okay, so I'm turning it back over again, just checking it's not too hot. And then moving along, we're going to pick up some more paint. Now this time, we're just going to stay in the corner of the eyes, okay? So we're just going to go into the corner here. Again, same thing on the fat roll of the cheek with the tip in the crease. And we're just going to go around the corner there. And I'm going to do that on both eyes. Okay. Like so. And then just dab that out with your sponge and set it with the heat gun. Okay. And you can see it's just giving her a little bit more definition under the eyes. I'm not going to do any more on the whole eyelid though, on the whole crease of the bag of the eye, because I feel it'll end up looking too puffy for my taste. So I'm just going to stick with the corner of the eye for now. Okay, so we're going to go back in with our brush just in the corner of the eye there, like so. Just the very, very corner, nothing else. We'll do that on both eyes. Like so. Just push it right in with your brush. And then we're just going to dab that out there and just heat set that. Okay, and then take another look from the front, and that's really beginning to pull her eyes in nicely, as you can see there. So we're going to keep going with that. So tip her back over again, pick up some more paint and do the same thing again, right in the corner of her eyes. Like so. And just dab the excess off with your sponge. Make sure there's no harsh lines. And then we'll heat set that. Okay, flip her back over. And you can see that's really begun to darken and just pull her eyes in a little bit more. Okay, now the vinyl's quite hot at the moment because of the heat gun, so I'm just going to leave it to cool, and then once it's cool enough to take the paint, I'm going to come back with the next step. Okay, so we've heat set that now, and I think that's going to be enough for now. We may come back later, so yes, I'm happy with that for now. So we're going to move along to the ears. So there's what we saw before. You can see before we thought that was like really quite dark and we'd done quite a lot, but now we've moved on with the face. Looking at the ears, they're not actually as dark as we thought, so we're going to go back and redo them. So I'm just going to find another brush that I believe will work better. So this is a number 2 and it's a flat brush. Something similar to this would be good. If you have something similar in your paintbrush area. Just remove the paint from that brush. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint around the edge of the ear, like so, and on the lobe. I'm going to paint all the way around the back of the ear as well. And then just pounce that out with your sponge just to make sure it's nice and blended around the back of the ear as well. And I'm just going to go into this little crease here as well and just pounce that out with your sponge, and then I'm going to heat set that. Like so. And then I'm going to repeat this process probably about 5 or 6 times. But this time I'm going to leave this front bit here, and I'm going to start at the top of the ear and work my way around. Okay, and make sure you're all the way into the back of the ear, reloading your brush when necessary. Like so, and just go behind the ear and into this little crease there. And then get your sponge and just pounce out the excess there and around the back of the ear as well, and then in that little crease, just gonna, because it's not gone quite the way, all the way in, so just gonna put that right into the crease like so. Just pounce out as much as I can with that, and I'm going to use a dry brush, a fine one, in that little crease there, just to make sure there's no excess, and I'm going to heat set that again. Do that all over again. So from the top of the ear down the back, I'm going to go all the way around to the lobe, like so. And then into the ear itself, around that little crease, just pounce the excess off the back of the ear. Now as we started from the top, I'm just going to bring it in a little bit, so pounce it round so there's a little bit of a gradient there, rather than it stopping at a harsh sort of line, so it's suddenly there and then suddenly not. Okay, and then we're going to heat set that. Check it's not too hot. And then repeat the process. And we go right to the back of the ear as well. And then go into the little crease. Go all the way around the ear, and then just dab it off with your sponge. Go all the way around. Like so. See how it's really beginning to pick the colour up now? Okay, so we're going to heat set that as well. Not too hot, and then go in and do the same again. So from the top all the way down and around and into the lobe. Just going to bring it up this time so there's not too much of a harsh gradient there. So I'm just going to bring it back behind the ear, make sure it's all covered, and then go into the ear as well and round in that little crease there. Just pounce it all in, make sure it's all in there, and then with your sponge just pounce around the outside like so, and around inside if you can. If you can't, then use your dry brush just to make sure it's all clear, and then heat set that. So compared to this ear here, can you see how much of a difference there is? The undone ear and then the painted ear. So that's not even finished yet, so we've still got a little bit to go, but it's just such a difference with just a couple of layers of paint placed in the right area. Really starts to come to life. Just going to keep going with that, we've still got a way to go. Now I'm not going to go around the outside this time, I'm only going to go in the crease because the crease needs to get darkened because it's just, we're losing the definition a little bit. So I'm just going to load my brush and just go around the crease with the paint, like so. And then pounce that out with your sponge. I don't think I'm going to get my sponge in there, so I'm just going to use my dry brush to make sure there's no excess in there. And bring that around. And then I'm going to heat set that. Okay, and we're going to do that again. So instead of using my flat brush, I'm going to move on to my round brush. So this is a number 0 round. Just means I can get into the crease a little easier. So just follow the crease right around, all the way around there. Okay. And then go in with your dry brush and just make sure that it's all smoothed out. Okay, I'm going to heat set that. Okie dokie. So we're beginning to get a little bit of that definition back. The heat's getting a little bit too much on the ear, so I'm going to move over and do the other ear. Still surprises me how much of a difference there is. But I'm going to move over to this ear, go back to my flat brush, and we're going to do the outside of the ear just like the other one. So we're going to do all of it first. So the whole of the back, right from the front all the way around. Like so. I'm going to go right into the back of the ear. And into the little crease. Like so. And just pounce that out with your sponge. Like so. And then we're just going to heat set that. And then we're going to do that again, but we're going to start from the top of the ear now and go right around like we did on the other side. And all over the lobe, and then into the back here. Like so. Make sure you go into the little crease as well. And then just pounce out the excess there. Okay, and I'm going to go with my dry brush around the crease. Just make sure there's no little bits hiding there. And then we'll heat set that. Okie dokie. And then do that again. Forgetting to go into the crease. And the back of the ear as well. And then just pounce that out. Okie dokie, then we'll heat set that. Oh, flying brush. Okay, I'm going to do that again. Around the back of the ear. And then into the crease. And pounce that out. I'm going to go back with my dry brush. Make sure there's no excess in there. And just pounce, and then we'll heat set that as well. getting the back of the ear as well. And into the crease. And just pounce off the excess. Go in with my dry brush. Like so, and just pounce off the excess there. And then we're going to heat set that. Now this back bit doesn't seem to be picking up paint as well, so I'm just going to focus on that area alone for a while and just see if we can bring that back up with the rest of the colour. Set that. So I'm just running my brush along the bit that's not picking up the paint very well. And just dabbing it gently off with my sponge and then heat setting it. Heat set that again. When you're reborning, you need to make sure you have clean hands and you don't have any moisturiser or oils or anything like that on your hands, because if you do, then when you're touching the vinyl, the oils will come off your hands and onto the vinyl, so even the natural oils in your hands. So every time you start to reborn, you need to either wear gloves or make sure you wash your hands. Sometimes this happens where paint just doesn't pick up in one area as quickly as others. It's no matter, you just got to concentrate on the bit that's not picking the paint up for a little bit on its own, and just bring it up to the same colour as as the other part. Okay, I think that's brought up to scratch, but in doing so that's darkened this area, so we're going to just concentrate on the top now to make it all the same tone. Okay, we're going to heat set that now. Just keep checking to make sure the vinyl isn't too hot to put the next layer of paint on. Just bounce that out and then heat set that. Okay, you can see it's still a lot more red at the base than it is at the top, so we're just going to focus right on the very top at the moment. heat set that. And heat set again. Okay, now that's getting a little bit too hot to work on. And this side has cooled down, so we're going to move back to this side. And I'm going to move back to my circular brush. Just mix my paints a bit because they've got settled. I'm going back to my circular brush. I'm going to just fill in the creases a little bit more. So back to this crease here. Just go right the way around. Like so. And then go in with your dry brush just to make sure it's all set in, and then heat set that. Okie dokie. And do the same again. And then use your dry brush just to push it a little bit more into the crease and just make sure that there's no excess lying around. Then we can heat set that again. And then heat set that again. Okay, so we're just going to check the temperature and it's still perfectly fine. So I'm going to move into the flat again, the small flat. So this is a number 2 flat, I think. And I'm just going to focus on the centre area of the ear, so the base area here. So I'm just going to fill that in with the red. I'm going to turn my head and just make sure it goes up the vertical wall here, all the way around, and then back up into the crease we've been focusing on. I'm just going to go in with my dry brush and just push it into the van a little bit more and make sure there's no excess hanging around, and then we'll heat set that. Okay, and then we'll do that all again. So in the base here, turn my head around and go on the vertical wall. Move it right around into the fork area, and then go in with your dry brush, like so, and then heat set that. Okay, and we'll do that again. Newborns tend to have quite red base to the ear, so where we're working on now tends to be quite red. So don't be afraid to go quite a bit darker with this. Just make sure it goes up the vertical wall as well, and then round into the fork, like so. And just use your brush just to push it into the creases a little bit more, and heat set that. Okay. And keep going with that. And where the ear comes down, so this bit that comes around the side and comes down into the ear, it's usually raised. If you leave that alone when using your red, it will look as though it's yellow. You know, like we're doing with the curl of the fork here, we're not really touching it with the red. If you do the same thing, it just sticks out and helps the red to deepen the base of the ear even more. You see what I mean there? So the bit that comes round here, just leave that alone for now. Okay? Just pounce all around into the fork, and then using your dry brush, just lift the excess out, push it into the vinyl even more, and then we can heat set that. Use my sponge there for a second. And you see how that's beginning to set back a little bit more? Okay. So we're going to go in more with our paint. Now this time, instead of doing the whole area, I'm going to do the bit at the base here. It goes into the eardrum, and then just follow from the base there, and that little curve at the back here, and then that little bit there. Okay, as it goes into the fork, and then just blemish that all out, and then we'll heat set that. Do the same thing again, so into the little ear canal area, and then round on the base and in the very edge of the ball in the back there, and in that little crease at the fork, and then just make sure it's all pushed in with your dry brush, and then I'm going to heat set that. So we're going to do that again. So in that little ball area at the back, down at the base and in the ear canal area, and then in that little section at the fork. And then just use your dry brush to push it in a little bit more, and heat set that. Just okay, I'm just going to push a little bit more in here, and heat set that. That's getting a little bit hot, so we're going to move back to this ear. You can see a big difference there between the two. So this one just needs a little more in the base as well. So yeah, I'm going to move to my circular brush, and we're going to do the crease on this one. So around from the fork here and around this area, right down and into the lobe, do that crease. Okay, and then we'll use our dry brush just to push it in a little bit more and remove any excess that's laying around, and then we'll heat set that. Do that again. crease. All the way around, like so, and blemish that off. There we go, and then we'll heat set that. Again. Okay, I'm just going to focus on this little area in here because it's a little bit wider than the rest of it. I just don't feel it, you know, it's got as much depth. So I'm just going to work on that section with my brush. Just in here, like that, and then just pounce out with my dry brush. Okay, and then we'll heat set that. Same thing again. Just move my brushes out the way. And I'm not using. There we go. Feel a lot better when the place is tidy. Okay, same thing again, and heat set. Okay, that's looking a little bit better, so I'm just going to do a couple more layers on that bit on its own. I'm happy how that's matching up now, so I'm going to go ahead and finish creasing there. So I'm going to do the whole crease now, so right down into this area here and all the way around, going into the fork as well, and just blemish that out. And then heat set that. And again. And heat set. My ear's getting a little bit hot, so I'm just going to move on to the other ear. And I'm just going to focus a little bit more on the fork of the ear. So we're just going to add a little bit more all around to begin with. And pounce it out with your sponge. And heat set. Okay, and now I'm just going to do the very base of it that goes into the ear there. with how that looks for now. So that is cooling down a little bit, so I'm going to go and use my flat brush, and we're going to start on the inside of this ear. So same as before, into the area there and up the vertical wall. Like so. And then use your dry brush just to push it all in and make sure there's no excess lurking around. I'll just heat set that. And then we'll repeat that. And use your dry brush to polish it out. Like so, and heat set that. And do that again. Use your dry brush. Like so. Just going to use a clean sponge just to go around the edges, because I don't want it on that fork. Okay, and then we'll heat set. Okay, and we'll keep going with that. And heat set. And heat set that again. Compare it to the other to see how dark we're getting. We've still got a little way to go. Just doing the same again. And then heat set. Make sure we're still in nice, not too hot, the vinyl. It's still okay. Okay. And heat set. Now we're just going to move into doing the base where it goes into the ear canal, and then run it along the base and into the ball at the back, and then in that little section where it joins onto the fork. So I'm just going to concentrate on that bit for now. So we'll heat set that. So into the ear canal, along the base and to the ball at the back. And then heat set that. Okay. I think that looks looks about right. So we're going to move on to the fork at the top now. So just going to mix the paints, and then we're going to put it all over the fork to begin with. And then heat set that. And then just where it goes into the little crease there, just at the base there. Okay, and then we'll varnish that out with your dry brush and heat set. Again into the base, like so. Blemish it out and heat set. Take a step back and see what it looks like. I'm liking how it looks, so I'm going to leave them for now and we'll move on, and we may come back to them later on. We'll see what it looks like, but for now we're just going to leave them be. So before we move on from the head, I'm just going to go back into the eyes. I just don't feel they're quite dark enough, so I'm going to use my circular brush here and just run it over where there's the second crease. Just going to run it all over that area there and just lift it up above the creases and up onto the upper eyelid. Like so, and then we'll pounce that out with the sponge and heat set it. And then we'll do that again. I'm just going to draw a line across the nose as well, just to get some shading in that. And then we'll heat set that. And that's all the red we're going to do on the face for now. See, she's really come to life and she's beginning to get the colour into her that we need. Okay.